a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Last weekend, Jen went to a protest, and she's pretty psyched about it. Jen, whose activism usually begins and ends with buying the most ethically sourced dryer balls she can find on Amazon, went to a protest. She made a sign, she double-checked her dates and times, she looked up where to park nearby, she asked a few friends to come with, and they all said no, but she showed up. She even yelled a couple times. That felt weird. But it did feel amazing to be part of so many people marching. Hundreds and thousands, no, millions, she found out after. All standing together and chanting and being in solidarity, which is a word she hears a lot from her anarchist friend Ivy. It might be Ivy's motto. It's how she signs her emails, at least. And the whole time Jen was at the protest, she was thinking, Ivy's gonna be so proud of me. So the moment she got back to work on Monday, she put on her reclaimed lamb's wool business moccasins and went straight to Ivy's cubicle and told her all about her amazing weekend of collective action. And Ivy said, "Ugh, God, of course you went to that. You know the people organizing this are the exact same people rubber stamping all the things you're protesting against, right?" Jen is surprised. She's seen pictures of famous protests, and this looked like those. But Ivy continues. You're not throwing a protest, you're throwing a parade. You're more interested in showing that you have the right morals. You're so devoted to building a big tent and courting the centrists that you don't actually challenge the systems that got us into this mess in the first place and that are killing people today because you pander to people who can't imagine something that legitimately challenges the status quo. And then Jen, who's had her own opinions for a while about what protests Ivy seems most interested in, will say, "Okay, and you want to challenge the status quo. How? Is your plan to flip cars and block freeways? Because that polarizes people. It's just as likely to turn people against us and justify more police spending, or bigger crackdowns, or more surveillance. It makes people less sympathetic to our cause and to us as people. It gives Fox News ammunition to legitimately get the conservatives to hate us." As if Fox News doesn't just invent fake reasons for conservatives to hate us anyway. We don't need to worry about giving them ammunition. We need to worry about showing that we're not gonna take all this laying down, because the moment you go home after your 2-hour lunch break protest or end your single-day performative boycott, you go back to drinking your Starbucks and shopping at Target and playing nice with your racist relatives. Tell me, if you win, we, just have a Democrat president again? Because that worked great. And so if you win, what does you winning look like? I see you've written down, own the means of production. This is a draft. It's not done yet. We're going to finalize demands once we reach critical mass. We have a complex consensus mechanism. We have some Dianas working really hard on it in 7 different Discord servers. But, by the way, whatever our demands end up being, they must include ending the largest genocide in recent history. Seems like you're siding with a lot of people who feel uncomfortable mentioning that. And then I close Instagram because, let's be honest, this isn't a real conversation. This is an argument happening in someone's comment section, and I actually can't take it anymore. So let's talk about protest. The acts of protesting a corporation and protesting a government are similar in that your opponent is a massive, powerful, hard-to-budge enforcer of the status quo, an entity that is, in theory, supposed to value us. The us being voters, citizens, customers, employees. And protest is, theoretically, a way that we, the people, mobilize to represent our desires. That's in Jen's world, at least. In Jen's world, this is a two-way relationship. If enough people make their voices heard, a government or a corporation is supposed to bend to the will of the citizen or the consumer. Some people with power will see that we are very, very serious, you guys. And those people will feel emboldened to act on our behalf. You know, representative democracy. That's Jen's ideal relationship. And it was a fun concept. Ivy believes in a different two-way relationship between people in power. Two parties leveraging as much force as they can muster against one another. And the people haven't been mustering very much force. So the institutions will always call our bluff. In Ivy's world, protests must do something different. They need to be a show of very real, in-the-moment force. Occupying buildings and streets, causing disturbance, costing money. None of us alone can muster the kind of force to threaten an oligarchy. What are we, billionaires? But a bunch of people applying a small amount of force in the same direction? Now you're getting somewhere. Hence, collective action. If we can demonstrate that it's less costly to go with us than against us, if we can make business as usual expensive or dangerous, that's how we do this dance. As Saul Alinsky said, power just goes to two poles, to those who've got money and to those who've got people. Jen and Ivy are both right about what protests can be for. Where Jen is wrong is in thinking that polarizing protest is always a net negative. And where Ivy is wrong is in thinking that non-disruptive protest has no meaningful effect. The lovely website Beautiful Trouble draws a distinction between two types of protest: concrete protest and communicative protest. A communicative or symbolic protest does not aim to accomplish a specific goal, it aims to signal support for a position. A concrete protest has a specific goal, and so its success or failure is measurable. Think 100 protesters laying on the Capitol steps to protest the development of a new oil pipeline versus 100 protesters laying down in front of a bulldozer developing a new oil pipeline. You can see where Ivy's coming from here. 100 protesters in front of the Capitol raises some awareness, gets attention, provides evidence of motivated public opinion. Maybe it makes people angrier about the pipeline construction. Maybe it prompts a representative to speak out on the legislative floor. There's some compelling evidence that an impassioned speech has surprising potential to reduce future harm. Hell, maybe it even flips a vote from a district rep who's worried about losing their seat. But 100 protesters refusing to budge from the site halts the construction until the protesters are physically removed, which they probably will be. But importantly, that delays work. It messes with the estimate for project completion. It increases the cost of doing business. Diana tactics work this way too. It is a known tactic to dig through a planned project's environmental impact statement for contradictions, unknowns, unqualified estimates, and to point out, hey, this isn't good enough. What about this other thing? And trigger another round of environmental reviews. That's why the Trump administration wants to disable these levers. But the concrete protest angle works this way too. If every new pipeline project could expect to have its production timeline and operating costs ballooned by occupations, hackers, sabotage, etc., how's that balance sheet starting to look? All of this is sometimes polarizing, which we'll talk about more in a future video. The public isn't primed to understand or empathize with this type of protest. That's one of the flaws of living in a sham democracy. Lots of people are still conditioned to believe there is a polite and a correct way to express grievance, and that the correct way is the polite way. Importantly, this kind of protest is also risky. There has hardly been a concrete protest throughout American history that has not incurred police violence under a Republican president or under a Democrat president. And for what it's worth, progressive protests are far more likely to be the subject of police violence and arrests. Also practically, a concrete protest is harder for protesters to commit to. It's often hyper-local for one thing. Zuccotti Park is far away, South Dakota is far away, Atlanta is far away, Seattle in the year 1999 is far away. All of this is why I'll never say that concrete protest is always more tactical than communicative protest. Especially because it's not a one-to-one trade-off. You just have to know which kind of protest you're organizing and what each of them is for. And again, I'm sorry to keep doing this, there's just so much to talk about. We'll talk more about the goals of symbolic protest in the next video. Because all of this, that's not really what Instagram Ivy was saying, was it? Whenever I see these conversations, like deep in the AOC subreddit, or in a random reply chain on a local news article, it seems that some Ivies are not aggravated by a lack of specific demands.
Any of you know why you're protesting?
The air.
Air.
You're protesting the air?
It seems that their issue with, say, the 50-51 protests is that they are too centrist to be worth a leftist's time. Please join me in the next video where I describe exactly why a protest like this is totally worth a leftist's time.